Black Oak Stout. All right, so today we're making beer. You're supposed to say yay beer.
Yay beer.
Yeah. All right, so to make this beer, I'm gonna start off with Safe Ale US 05 yeast. Why? Because A, we have it, and B, it works well for what I'm looking for. If you read the packages, they actually tell you the characteristics, and one side's English. Balanced beers with a very dry, clear, crisp end palate. I don't know, that sounds good to me. It also, when I looked it up, works for like an earthiness and things like that I'm looking for, so it works. I'm just gonna go with like half a packet, and I'm dumping that into a little bit of water here to get it started. This is just hydrating the yeast. Proof of life is all this is. Just making sure the yeast is alive.
With the sound of music.
I just want to give that a little bit of a stir in my self-stirring cup. I like it because it has ridges on the inside for the yeast pleasure, and that way you can mix. I almost got it out without laughing. That way you can mix it up, and you don't have to use a spoon or other device in it. By the way, the first step really was, everything here has been sanitized in
The red bucket of sanitization!
which is literally just a big bucket off to the side, happens to be red, obviously, with Star sand and water mixed to the manufacturer's suggested ratio in there. And we just dunk everything in there for 2 minutes, and that way it's sanitized.
Buckets of other colors work just as fine as well.
Yes, they do. Next, I'm gonna use a pot. Now this pot actually was not sanitized, but it's okay because we're gonna boil everything that's going in here. And the first thing going in here is this stuff, which is Brice, however you pronounce it, Traditional Dark. Now, I know I want about 1.5 pounds of this stuff. It's been sitting around for a while. That's why we're making a beer. I'm just gonna weigh off how much is here. I think it's about 1.5 pounds. It's very sticky and dusty. It's a little chunky, but that's okay because we're gonna put water in there and mix it all together anyway. I have 1 pound, 9.5 ounces, so a little over 1.5 pounds. As you can tell, it is quite a bit chunky in there. Those are some big chunks, but it's okay. Once we mix that with water, it'll all break down. Now we're using a dark dry malt extract for this on purpose because, you know, it's supposed to be a stout, darker beer. And I'm using 1.5 pounds because you get about 0.042 gravity in 1 pound of wort. Yeah, it's wort, right? Not must. I'm so used to saying must. Get about 0.042 specific gravity in 1 pound for this type of extract. We're using 1.5 pounds, so we get a little bit more. We're gonna get like a 1.06 something original gravity, but that's not all that's going in here yet.
So this is a dry malt plus.
That's right. And the first plus is going to be chocolate malt. I have 2 ounces of chocolate malt. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to add flavor. We're not really going to be adding enzymes to it or anything like that to extract because there's not really a lot of sugars left in those malts at this point. They've been roasted to heck and back.
And we have our base already that's going to be plenty for our fermentable sugars.
And then I also have 2 ounces of crystal malt. Now, they're both for aroma and color and extra flavor. These are going to be like that roasty, toasty, really dark malt idea. And then, hey, you know what?
Just to go that extra mile.
I have some Cafe Bustelo Instant Espresso here. It's 1/2 ounce. Looks like a lot, but 1/2 ounce. That's just going right in. And then we have a gallon of water, minus, you know, a couple ounces that are working our yeast. This is a 1 gallon recipe, but this is roughly like a 2.5 gallon pot because it'll foam up a little bit during the boiling process, and we don't want any foam overs or messes.
Speaking of foaming up, you're going to want to babysit this as it's boiling. You don't want to sit and forget. You want to watch it.
But the first thing I want to do is mix this up. To mix it up, I'm going to use the spattle. It's a spoon, it's a paddle, it's both.
Link in the description below.
And I just want to mix this up, get rid of some of those big lumps because they don't boil real well when it's all lumpy. It will melt down as it cooks a bit too, but I just like to give it a good head start. And wow, it broke down pretty easy. I don't really feel any big lumps in there. The first part of the boil though, I will probably give it a good stir every couple minutes just to keep everything moving and break it all up. By the way, before anybody freaks out, this is a stainless steel pan, and I'm going to switch to a stainless steel spoon when we go to the stove so I don't melt plastic. And stainless steel is totally fine. It doesn't react with the fermentation process, so it'll be fine. But I'm going to go put this on the stove and start the boil. So once it comes to a full boil, which we're just about there, you want to add your first addition, which is 0.12 ounces of Tettnang hops. And mix that in. Remember when we were saying before about keeping an eye on this? That foam, that's what you don't want to build up. You do not want that to overflow. All right, at the 30-minute point, guess what? We're gonna do another addition of 0.12 ounces of Tettnang hops. And stir. Notice the foam has broken off, it's gone. Just let it boil. We'll be back in about another 30 minutes or so to do the final addition. All right, so we're at like a minute before what they call flame out, where you turn the heat off. And it's time for our third addition of 0.12 ounces of Tettnang hops. I'm turning the heat off. I'm stirring it. And now something very important has to happen. I need to cool this down. I put about 6 to 8 inches of water in our bathtub, just cool water, and I'm gonna set this pot in there and change the water out as I need to. It takes about 10, maybe 15 minutes to cool this down to under 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll put the Celsius right here. It's been maybe 15 minutes, and this has cooled down to about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's...
And Brian has not decapitated me and perched me on top of a...
No.
Okay.
We had to set up a filtration thing here. See, I can actually hold this. That's how you know that it's not too hot. Because if this is too hot and you add your yeast to it, you'll kill your yeast. You don't want to do that. So what we have here is a 2-gallon bucket, which we're going to be fermenting in. That way, if it decides to foam up and get crazy, it's not going to make a mess in our kitchen. Then we have just a colander with a bag. You know, like one of those brew bags. We have a bag.
All these things have been sanitized, so it's all good.
It's all safe. And the reasoning for all this is we have grains and hop fragments and stuff in here that we don't want in the bucket. So that's why.
I'm going to try to carefully align the strainer because it's a little too big, so that way none of the holes are
allow it to leak.
Open to air.
All right, here we go. Gotta just go for it. Oh yeah, it's nice and gloopy.
It's dark.
Very, very dark. But all that stuff at the bottom, we don't need that. However...
And now we wait.
It shouldn't even take that long.
Yeah, you don't need to mess with it. You just relax.
Relax. That's funny. Have you met me?
Shockingly, I have met you.
See, this is where I would normally do this. Makes it drain a lot faster. It does. Makes for better television. I'm just going to give it a squeeze. I'm going to get out as much of the liquid as we can without breaking the bag. All right. That's it.
All right, go wash your hands.
To the sink.
You know you need to.
Yep. So now that we got it to that point, Derica just put the lid on because I had to do some stuff. I want to show you something. This is why I love buckets and containers that have measurements and you can see through. See that little 1 right there? That's 1 gallon. We're trying to make a gallon of beer, not just under half a gallon or over half a gallon, whatever that is. We need a gallon. So I'm going to add some water to fill it back to a gallon. Just so happens I got water right here. It'll also cool it off because this is just, tap water temperature. It's not tap water, it's filtered water, but you know what I mean? It's like room temperature water rather than hot water. There's no nice way to say that. I mean, somebody got all like weird on me when I said body temperature, so I don't like to say that much anymore. So instead, I guess I'm just gonna have to say it's cooler than the temperature that kills yeast water. How's that?
Are you at 1 gallon?
I am at 1 gallon.
All right.
But I would also like to give this a bit of a mix. Before we go too much further, we want to take that lid back off. And our yeast has foamed up beautifully. It's obviously alive. It's been sitting for a little while. Just going to give this a quick mix to get them all in there so they can all fulfill their destiny, and I can pour this in. If your must is well over 110 or so, up to 120, you're going to kill that yeast. So that's why we wanted to cool that off. And now I'm just going to mix things through just to be homogeneous. Look, I mean, this is so dark. I love it. And now we're going to take a gravity reading. And like I say, I'm estimating somewhere between 1.060 and 1.070. So this is a stout, it's kind of a strong beer. And I think we named it appropriately. Wow. It's like squid ink. Okay, 1.070. That gives us a potential alcohol of like 6, 7, 8, somewhere around like 9%. I'm cool with that. 9%. That works for a stout for me. And I'm just going to pour this back in. It's okay to oxidize at this point, which it's not actually Oxidizing. Oxidizing is the chemical reaction when electrons are removed from an object, whereas oxidization is when you add oxygen. Oxygenation is when you add oxygen to it. Somebody corrected me the other day, and I remember what they said. What do we do now?
We make sure it snaps, because if it doesn't snap, your seal is crap.
That's right. And by seal, what we mean is the seal of the lid, so that we know that we have an airtight seal. Is it 100% necessary to have an absolute airtight seal? No. But it means your bubbler won't go bloop, bloop, bloop. And you want it to go bloop, bloop, bloop. Because that way, that's half the fun of being a brewer. I'm so glad that worked. We didn't plan that. She had no idea I was going to make her do that.
Like, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm blooping, apparently.
Yeah. But anyway, this will go sit in a fermentation.
Yeah. I was just gesturing.
It's half full. So pretty much no matter how active this thing gets, it should not overflow. That's kind of my new theory at this point. And once that airlock activity starts to die down, probably a week, maybe 2 at most, we'll be back to show you the next step. It's been 1 week. And I noticed that it looked like it was slowing down, so we're going to take our first reading on it. Might not be ready yet, but that's okay. It's good to know. So take the airlock out, pop open the lid, and looking inside, I just see bubbles. I don't see anything that would cause any amount of concern. It smells like beer, so we're good to go. By good to go, I mean good for its first reading. And oh my God,
That's super dark.
that is black beer. Wow. That's what we were looking for. We wanted it to be like that. It was by design. If your hydrometer doesn't float, you're not getting a reading. I'll tell you that right now. All right. I don't think this is done yet. It's sitting at 1.024 right now, so no worries. Just going to put this right back in. But now we have a status check on it, so to speak. So we know, is it doing something or not?
I have a question for you.
What is your question?
Even though it's not done, we know we're going to do something else to this, and we know we want to bottle it soon afterwards.
Do we want to do that now?
Do we want to go ahead and do that now?
Yes, I think we should do that now. Stay tuned to find out what it is. And that other thing is, we wanted to add some wood flavor to this, some barrel char kind of thing. And we just happen to have some French oak medium plus toast from Barrel Char Wood Products. Ken has been a sponsor of the show
awesome.
like forever.
He is awesome.
He just sends us tons of wood samples all the time.
And I know I've said it before, but when we first started oaking things, we used the commercially made staves, and it was just like,
They don't work. They're nothing compared to this. I don't know anything about like kilning wood for your own use, like if you cut it down from your own tree. People ask that all the time. I don't actually know the answer to that. I'm sure there's some amount of a safety precaution to take. I don't know, but I know that this stuff, it's not super expensive, and you know.
and it's good.
Yeah.
It's real good.
But anyway, the way I treat it is, I have a Pyrex. I put the wood in there. I pour some boiling water over it. I let it sit for about 5 minutes or so. It's kind of a sanitary measure. It does leach off a little bit of the excess tannins, but it's really mostly to more or less sanitize the wood.
And then he always burns his fingers.
I don't. Then you just drop it in. And that's it. That's the big secret to oak aging. There are many barrels and things like that on the market that you can try.
Get the snap.
You didn't get it. There are products out there that you can try if you want to. Most of them, really, it's more of a toy than really being effective. This, we found, is the most effective means. Usually let it sit for a couple of weeks. So we're going to put the airlock back on here, put it back in the fermentation, and we'll see you then. Okay, it's been 2 weeks. We have it sitting on oak, and we're going to check its gravity to see if it's done. It looks very dark in there. It smells like dark stout beer. Love it. I don't see anything untoward in here. Everything looks perfectly fine.
It looks yummy.
Just like it did before.
It looks yummy.
It smells really good. We both actually really like this style of beer, so that's helpful. Oh, wow. When you see this.
Super dark.
No, it's not just a bucket of squid ink, I promise. But it certainly looks like it. So it was at 1.024 when last we left it. And that was kind of intentional. We've been doing this a lot lately where we know that fermentation isn't really done, but we're moving forward a little bit anyway. Laziness, just wanting to get things done, I don't know. But there was no reason to not oak this when we did.
Sure.
So we did.
And we also know that beers in general leave residual sugars.
Yeah, but usually not this much, 1.024. It didn't move. Here's the thing. We used more than you should use for a gallon, which means those fermentable sugars compound. So that's probably what that happened because we've seen that before when we tried making anytime you use an extract, there's a set amount of non-fermentable sugars. You can't do anything about it. So we just compounded it. It's okay. But I did figure it out. It's still like 6% ABV. I mean, hey, if Guinness can say 4.2% is a stout, we can say 6.5% after carbonation is a stout. I'm just going to put that in there. Oh, except for that. Oh, that is lovely. It's got a little bit of oakiness.
Some leave-ins.
Yep. It's got a little bit of oakiness. Some good like char, almost like a dark chocolate kind of thing.
Can even get in the coffee that you added.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is wonderful.
Oh.
I'm excited now. This is good. All right, so we're going to rack this into our pitcher here so that we can calculate our
volume.
That's the word. And we're going to add our sugar to carbonate. Did I mention this is going to be naturally carbonated? I may not have, but it's going to be. I cannot get over how dark this is. Look at this. This is just, it's black. But, we're calling it Black Oak Stout. I mean, it should be black and oaky. And it is.
And a stout.
Yeah.
Adjacent.
Well, okay, somebody might want to really get technical on this, but like I said, it's a stout style beer. Now, stout generally does mean a higher ABV, but it doesn't always mean that because, like I said, Guinness is 4.2%, yet that's a stout. I don't understand. So I don't make the rules, but Black Oak Stout sounds a whole lot better than Black Oak might be a stout. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We have it racked to our pitcher. We got about 120 ounces, which we're using these bottles, which are actually Guinness bottles. They're 11.4 ounces, but I think they're actually closer to 12. And I'm figuring it's going to be about 10 bottles for that. We are going to be using our bottle capper with it. But in order for it to naturally carbonate, we need to add more sugar. Now, I know what you're thinking, but it stopped at 1024. Yeah, that's probably non-fermentable sugars, so it's fine. This should totally naturally carbonate. So I have 42 grams of sugar. That's right, it's the answer to life, the universe, and everything, and it's also the appropriate amount of carbonation for beers the way we like them. It also works out to about exactly, not about, 1.5 ounces of sugar. And we are just using plain old white sugar. There are other kinds of sugars you can use. People have asked, can I use honey? Can I use this? Can I use that? Yes, you can. They are not going to impart flavors so much because you're using so small an amount. I mean, you saw that. That was 42 grams going into a whole gallon. It's not enough for flavor so much as it's just there to carbonate, especially once it ferments.
The type of fermentable sugar that you do not want to add is anything that has an additive added to it to prevent caking, as that is bad for your brew.
Yeah. Like confectioner sugar often has cornstarch in it. You also don't want to, and I know this probably goes without saying for most of you, you don't want to try to carbonate with like erythritol or allulose or things like that because they're non-fermentable. They don't ferment. You actually need a fermentable sugar for carbonation because it is just a tiny little fermentation. Now, there's another step that we're going to do on this just to give it a little extra to make sure it really does carbonate, but we'll show you that after we've racked it into the bottles. And to do that, it's basically just, it's bottling, but you use a bottling wand on the end of the racking cane. We actually have videos on this. We have a chaotic one and we have an actual regular bottling video. We can link to both of those, I think. And we're gonna do that and we'll be back to share with you the next step after that, but I wanna get this mixed up first. All right, so we have our bottles full. They're all full to about there-ish, the same height. What we want to do now, though, is a little thing that we like to call insurance yeast. And for that, we're going to be using EC 1118. Now, you might be wondering, why are you using EC 1118? Well, here's the funny thing. It's a champagne yeast for a reason. It's literally the yeast used for the secondary fermentation, which is what produces the bubbles in champagne. So it's made for the job. That's literally what it's for. And I just put a little tiny bit. I mean, like literally 10 to 15 grains of yeast. Now, you might be wondering, why do you need that? Isn't there still yeast in there? I've never seen anybody do that before. Well, every time we don't do this, it doesn't carbonate. So I like to add a little bit just for insurance.
And that's why we call it insurance yeast. It's not necessarily needed, but when it is, it's sure glad that it's there.
Yeah. And being that this ended with such a high final gravity, I want to make sure that the yeast can actually ferment just in case. Now, the downside to insurance yeast as opposed to not using it is you may end up with a little bit more sediment in the bottom of each bottle.
But regardless of whether you use insurance yeast or not, you are going to have at least some amount of sediment because you are intending for this to ferment more to create carbonation.
Exactly. And now we get to use our most favoritist toy ever.
Our bottle capper.
This is from North Mountain Supply. If you don't have one, if you have the means, I highly urge getting one.
It's quite choice.
Yes, it is. Just watched that movie the other day.
I don't think I put that. I just randomly put it. Yeah, we're not there.
Oh, yeah, it's not placed. What you want to do is this part goes up and out, and you want to get your bottle top even with, there's a little diagram, okay? It shows you.
It's a yellow line.
And then you take a bottle cap, like Derica already did it. She's jumping the gun. And you just put it in there. You want to make sure it's nice and centered. It's magnetic. And then you have a handle up here, just one finger. That's what they say, one finger. Look at that.
I noticed I was stabilizing the base because it is intended to be mounted to the base, but we don't want to mount it here because this is our
table.
Yeah,
this is our actual kitchen.
Yeah.
And I just let it come apart from the unit, turn it about 180 degrees, and just give it one more, just as an extra little insurance, if you will. And it eventually comes back out. You have to shake them a little bit.
Normally, it's a quite simple process, but of course, because we're filming,
Anytime you're filming,
it's going to be cantankerous.
Everything takes 10 times longer, and nothing works as expected. But, see, that's it. Really, really simple. So we're going to do that for the rest of these. And once they're all capped, we're going to put them into a bin, which is basically just a plastic tote from Lowe's. We call it the bomb shelter. They're going to sit in there for a couple of weeks to carbonate. We'll be back at that point to show you how they taste. Okay, so this has been carbonating for 2 weeks. But now is the moment of truth. Did it actually work? We used insurance yeast. We should be good to go. But you never know until you go to pop it open. Oh, I heard a sizz. Oh. It was a fizz. I heard it.
Oh, super dark.
Yeah, it's got some... Look at that. It's got head. There's head.
Yay.
That is super dark, though. Wow.
When the head is dark, you know it's dark.
Yeah, the head is caramel colored.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Love these little glasses from North Mountain Supply. They're like exactly perfect for half a beer.
Yeah.
What did this end at? It was 6.5%, and I just got beard
Everywhere.
So when we talk about dark, I mean, look at that. Look at the head on that. The head is totally caramel colored. That is an amazing color for a stout.
Prost. That's some good drinking.
That.
I love the coffee edition.
There's that little bit of coffee really came through.
It did.
It's a coffee stout.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's the best beer we've made.
I think the oaking is more forward.
Oh yeah.
The oak comes forward and then the coffee is in the rear.
I'm getting a little bit of char. I'm getting a little bit of caramelization, slight vanilla with the coffee, a little bit of chocolatey flavor in there from some of the malts. Oh, this is so good. But it's
not. Sometimes when you flavor a beer, at least that's been my experience, is that sometimes the maltiness, the beer essence, if you will, gets hidden.
Ooh, no.
This one does not. I think the oaking and the coffee are both enhancing the malty, grainy goodness of the base coffee, or the base beer. Sorry.
And there's tons of carbonation here. I'm looking at both.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Literally just coming right up the side.
It is lovely. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. And it was easy. This was so simple. This was an easy one.
Yeah. There's some serious amounts of complexity going on here. I'm getting some of the creamy notes, but I'm also getting some of the acidic notes from the coffee.
You would think at one point... sorry, go ahead.
and it tricks you because you know that it's oaked. Because I'm so used to getting the oak sensation in the back end of the taste profile, where it's definitely oaked forward.
What I was going to say is this is 1.024. This ended at 1.024, which you might think is, oh, that's going to be crazy sweet for a beer. Beer usually has a little bit of non-fermentable sugars. And because we basically up the ante, we have a little bit more. But this does not taste sweet.
No.
It's beautifully balanced. There's such strong acidic flavors in there that really balance it out. And the mouthfeel in this, it's like you get a drop in your mouth and it coats your mouth.
Yep.
But when they say that beer is like a meal, no kidding. This thing, you're going to be full after just drinking a little tiny glass of this. I mean, it's got so much going on.
Speaking of being full, though, even though this is delightful on its own, I could imagine pairing this with
Pizza.
food, burgers, I mean,
Barbecue.
a big old steak, so many things this would be perfect with. And I think because of those coffee and oaked notes, it
It takes it next level.
but it would really enhance, say, a charred grilled something,
Sure.
you know?
There was a place that we used to go when we were wedding photographers. After the wedding, we'd go there to eat. And they always had like these really cool craft beers and ciders and stuff. And I always got like the darkest beer the guy could recommend for me.
Yeah.
And this is easily on par with
absolutely.
any of those that I had there.
Absolutely.
Easily on
Absolutely.
par. I mean, wow. So incredibly good.
Yeah. So if you enjoy dark beers,
Practically speechless.
if you enjoy things that have those oaked notes and those coffee notes, you are really going to enjoy this. And I highly encourage you to brew a batch your own.
But you know what? We got to start thinking numbers.
Numbers.
She thought we were done. She was ready to just quit the video. On the screen, you should see a simple explanation of our scoring system. That way I don't have to go through the explanation of it. But now I have to explain the explanation of this. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Do you have a number?
Yep.
1, 2, 3,
8.5.
10.5. Can you tell I like this? That's the highest score I have given since we went back to ye olde system.
That's impressive.
8.5.
8.5.
You don't like beer as much as I do.
I don't like beer as much as Brian does, and I don't like coffee as much as Brian does. If I had the flavor palette of Brian, I would easily mark this an 11.
This falls into
that
whiskey notes for me.
10.5 silliness. No, this would go straight to 11.
I didn't go straight to 11 because there is an ever so slight, nearly imperceptible imbalance. The bitterness of the coffee is just
Yeah, if there was
it's
there
the
was
tiniest bit
a
too much.
little bit more sweetness
Yep, I agree.
to balance out that coffee note.
And that's why I didn't go to 11. But even at 10.5, this is points above most of the beers that I have purchased anywhere. Considering I made that whole batch for probably less than $20.
Yeah.
When we went to Belgium, we stopped at the airport and I got a Guinness for $16. That was not much bigger
That was
than this.
stateside. That wasn't.
That was in New Jersey. This blows that out of the water. And that was a Guinness. I like Guinness. One of my favorite beers. Probably my favorite beer. This, it's a totally different thing, but it blows it out of the water.
As with most of my samplings, when it brings into mind that I want to pair it with food, if I was pairing this with food, my number would have been a lot higher.
Oh, well, that's fair. But anyway, make this beer. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching and have a great day.
Bye-bye.